Good afternoon, all. We're going to call our Reentry Network meeting to order, and I'm going to ask for a roll call of our members. And then the rest of the time, we're going to do voice votes, just so you know. So we're going to save you some time. Thank you.
All right, ready? Good afternoon. We have Chairperson Chavez. We have Member Johnson, Member Burchard.
Do you know already? Do you want them to say here, or are you just going to?
Oh, I'm going to read, and then you can say here, just to acknowledge if you'd like.
Okay, thank you. I'm here.
Okay, and we have Member Johnson. In the mic, please, sir. For the record.
And yours is a button.
I thought we weren't sure if we were saying here or not.
We are.
So I was
We're all going to say we're
passively
here.
saying here.
We're trying to establish quorum. Thank you. We have Member Burchard.
Here.
Thank you. Member O'Neill.
Here.
Member Nikolai. Here. Member Shing.
Here.
Member Fisk. Here. Member Halcone. Present. Member O'Brien.
Here.
Member Amador. Here. We have Member Williams. Here. Member Mokiyama. Here. Member Manley. Here. Member Paramatam.
Here.
Member Cook.
Here.
Member Brahim. Here. Member Joseph.
Here.
Member Wiggins. Here. And Member Ellenberg. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we're going to go to public comment. And this is an opportunity to speak to an item that is within the purview of the committee, but not on our agenda.
We have one speaker card in chambers, and I am not showing any hands raised in Zoom. Wes Mukayama.
I just want to comment on using chemicals to extract inmates out of their cells. I still think this is pending, but I just like to make a statement that this is I think is very inhumane, as I go into the jail every week. And according to the newspapers, and I know we're going to address this again, maybe in January, that the head psychiatrist says it's better than putting hands on the inmate and pulling them out by force. But I wonder, because Santa Clara County is the only county that uses chemical to extract inmates out of their cells. There must be a better way. And even if you use the chemical, you're still going to put hands on to pull him or her out of their cell. That's my comment.
Thank you.
That was the only speaker.
Thank you. I'm going to close the public comment period, and I'm going to go now to approve the consent calendar and changes to the agenda. On our consent calendar, we have items 9, 10, and 11. 9 is the Reentry Resource Center quarterly dashboard. 10 is the approval of the Reentry Network meeting schedule, and 11 is the approval of the August 16th meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion from Manley and a second from Wes. And I'm going to see if there are any comments from my colleagues. Seeing none, I'm going to see if there are any comments from the public.
No speaker cards in chambers, and I do not see any hands raised in Zoom either.
We'll close the public comment period, and then all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any abstentions? Any noes? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. We're going to move on to item 4, and this is a report on jail bookings. And I think, oh, Kate, that's why you're there. Casey, I was wondering what happened. Why are you over there? All right. So, Casey, you're leading us through this.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairperson Chavez, Vice Chair Ellenberg, and members of the committee. Casey Halkin, Deputy County Executive, and I will be presenting on the quarterly report relating to jail population and bookings. So if you can just give us, oh, perfect, great. So we do have a slide presentation and also some comments. Next slide, please. So this is the average monthly jail population. As you can see, this goes back a few years to give you a really robust idea of the trend. And the population has remained stable, averaging around 3,000 since July of this year. Next, thank you. One moment. Okay. I'd also like to thank Program Manager Amanda Ayala, who is assisting, because I could not do both. So this gives you an idea of our trends. As this table demonstrates, the vast majority of the jail population in Santa Clara County continues to be comprised of individuals accused of committing a felony, which typically are offenses not eligible for diversion or alternative to incarceration programming. And we will share more information about those in custody for misdemeanor violations in another slide. But as you will see, these numbers have also remained largely consistent this calendar year. Daily bookings, and again, misdemeanor and felony, have also remained stable since April, averaging about 1,400 felony bookings per month and about 1,350 for misdemeanors. So again, what we're seeing, and this will be demonstrated really in many slides, is a fairly consistent number across different metrics. So this slide provides more information about the types of offenses in the felony booking category, with the two largest categories being violence against a person and felony theft or burglary. So violence against a person can be a typical assault, and it can also be what we typically see as domestic violence charges as well. So this slide is new. This presentation has been made in other committee meetings, but there was some interest in the misdemeanor breakdown, so we wanted to make sure that we were responsive to that interest. So this slide provides more information about the types of offenses in the misdemeanor booking category, with the largest category being driving under the influence. I did want to note for this committee that we do anticipate that these numbers will decrease as a result of a new pilot program with the City of San Jose and the San Jose Police Department, which allows for jail diversion to the Mission Street recovery for misdemeanor first-time offenses for DUI. Thus far, the numbers have been promising, and we will have more information on the early effectiveness of this pilot in the next quarterly report. I also did want to note that for the 8% being reported as misdemeanor violence against a person, the vast majority of these cases are going to be our misdemeanor domestic violence charges. So those are typically, between that and DUI, a large percentage of what makes up our misdemeanor population. An analysis of the booking and release information demonstrates that nearly half, or 47%, of the individuals booked into jail are released in 1 day or less. And that 1 day really can be 23 hours or below, with many in the 0 to 8 hour category. So they're going to be booked and cited out. But this is really the result of very robust policies that we've put into place to be able to release people more quickly as soon as possible. We go to the next slide. The further evaluation of this release data indicates a steady increase in pretrial release of unsentenced individuals, which likely indicates progress in coordinated diversion and alternative to incarceration efforts. We need to do a little bit of a deeper dive there to understand exactly how much, but there are some positive trends in this data that are demonstrating that the coordinated efforts that many of the departments represented here are working together to get people out more quickly, get them diverted when possible, try innovative pilot programming is having effectiveness. Another indication of this is what we refer to as the ALOS, or the average length of stay. And this has also remained stable in calendar year 23, which also further indicates that efforts to reduce the criminal case backlog have likely been effective in ensuring that the ALOS is not continuing to increase. But since it is persistently remaining stable, it also suggests that more efforts are needed to continue to reduce the criminal case backlog. And I know that is, I'd like to highlight the cooperation and collaboration with the Public Defender's Office, the District Attorney's Office, and the courts on that, who've all been working very closely together to make progress on those cases. So again, in summary, the jail population data thus far indicates that diversion efforts alone will not significantly reduce the jail population, as most inmates are in custody as a result of a felony, and therefore generally not eligible for diversion under current state law. So what we would recommend is that further reduction efforts focus on two areas. One, reducing the amount of time individuals spend in jail by reducing the criminal trial backlog, which again, we're seeing a lot of cooperation in our departments and are very grateful for that. It's something that they're working very hard on with our court partners. And continuing to invest further in evidence-based practices to support community crime prevention efforts. Really the best thing that we can do as a community to reduce the jail population is, of course, to reduce overall crime and to ensure that we are supporting our communities impacted by crime and really robustly coordinating our prevention efforts. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm available for questions if anybody has them, and certainly any of our experts here on the dais as well.
Thank you. I'm going to first start with seeing if we have any public speakers on this item.
There are no cards in chambers and no hands raised in Zoom.
Thank you. I'm going to close the public comment period. I'm going to see if anybody to my right is interested. Oh, Wes.
Over here. I have a question.
Of course.
I do hope you're improving your program. I do know of two individuals that have been incarcerated in the jail for 14 years. So I think there are extremes, but I would hope you can reduce that. I was told that I could use this point for housing, and I talked to the judge here, and he said he asked a question before too. One of my inmates who went to prison and came out wanted to come back to Santa Clara County, and he says there's no transitional housing here. And that's run by the state, and it's a requirement by the state to have it. I know my man here, Reverend Townsend, is also providing housing for a lot of people, but they don't have the official funds for that. So could you comment on why we don't have transitional housing for prison reentry?
I'm not sure that the data that I've presented.
I know it doesn't.
Yeah,
That's why
so
I'm
unfortunately, I don't know that I can comment, but I don't know, see if we have anybody here. I don't know if Javier or others that might be here could comment on the transitional housing available for some of our reentry clients, or potentially Chief Burchard as well. So I would leave that up to the experts on the dais.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's a matter of the state appointing the counties to do so, because I know most of them go to Oakland or Alameda County when they get out of prison, but they are from here because I follow them. So
No, and I appreciate your comments, and I do want, there is one portion of what you mentioned that I think I can comment on, which you were saying that you work with a few inmates who've been in custody for a very long time.
Yeah.
What I can tell you is that there's a very robust effort and collaborative one, multidisciplinary really, across many of our departments to work together to address
I do hope
individually
it
some of the
works.
cases that have been in custody the longest. And that work is really being led by the Public Defender's Office and the District Attorney's Office to work in concert along with ADO and IDO to address the alternate defender and the independent defense counsel to address those cases. So I know it's on the top of our minds and something that we're working hard to address. So I really do appreciate you bringing that to our attention.
maybe we could talk off.
Sure.
Okay? And there used to be transitional housing back in the 90s. Mental health had that. And I would wonder if supportive housing and mental health could fill that bill. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, thank you. And on that front, I don't think Supervisor Ellenberg and I, or President Ellenberg and I, don't sit on a single committee where housing isn't the solution to a number of our issues. And one thing I will tell all of you is that we had a really interesting presentation yesterday on what the county has been investing in housing. And I would just say that it's not enough. And one of the challenges we're having is balancing the need for housing with finding the appropriate sources of funds. And, you know, so we could absolutely use your help as we talk to the state about that issue. And while last night, you know, the slide presentation, and I'll I don't know where Javier is, but I'll say this to my staff. The slide presentation that was shown is worth sending out to all of you. It's really worth taking a look at. One point I'll just raise is that we have been working down multiple paths. One is on the housing side, and one is in partnership with behavioral health and with our substance abuse to make sure we have the resources we need there. And we had that discussion yesterday too. But I'll make sure we send that out because it will give you at least an update on where we are. But we are mindful that as we're transitioning people out of jail, putting them on the street only ensures that we're going to see them again. And so we're trying very hard to address that. But we'll have another time to discuss that. We'll send something out in advance. Is that all right, Jack? You got that? Great, thank you. Anybody else on this issue? Yes, Chief?
To your point, with our folks that are being released from prison, our PRCS and our MS locally, when they reoffend, if and when they reoffend, we're roughly about 50% are homeless at the time when they reoffend. And so it is a contributing factor to reoffenses as well as what we see.
Wow. So one thing Molly? I'm sorry, I'm using everybody's first names. I always do, y'all know that,
Oh,
so
please
I
feel
apologize.
free.
Thank you.
I just had
Our
a
public
comment, and I
defender.
wanted to thank Casey and her team for the presentation. A couple comments. One is, there was a slide that showed a huge number of people who are released after one day in jail. And you have to question whether those people even need to be in jail at all if they're coming back into custody one day after being admitted. So that's one comment. The other is, while it's true that many felonies are not divertible, there are we do mental health diversion applications on felony cases all the time. They take longer than some of the other diversion statutes, but there are mental health diversion applications granted, and people diverted out of the jail that way, too. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on this report? Yeah, Pablo?
Sorry, it's been a while since I've been up here. I forgot how stuff works. So I hear you guys talking about housing, and we always talk about how housing is the most limited resource, and everybody needs it. I beg to differ. I believe that the most limited resource is hope. And the way that we deal with the fact that we understand that is that we try to instill hope in all that we do. I feel like in our present system and the way that things work, it's like we're pouring new wine into old wineskins. We're working with the same system that's already in place, but we're trying to do new and innovative things. And then we're wondering why our outcomes are remaining the same. Just briefly, to talk about the housing component, we're doing a really shallow dive. We're helping a lot of people a little bit, and I feel like we could do a better job if we helped less people, but for a longer period of time. And we're really deliberate about the ways in which we help them. For example, if we give somebody housing and we don't give them the resources to maintain it, a training or a job or something that's going to be able to help them keep that housing once the subsidy is removed, then we're attacking that hope again. And there's nothing worse than thinking that you have things together or having that hope to move from one space to another, because that takes a lot. It takes courage to leave one space and to step out of it and go into another. And to have to go back to that is you end up worse off than when you started. And I feel like that's what's happened in the other iterations of the work that we've done. And I think that we could do better than that. So I just wanted to put that out there before we start, or before I start, because I've been at home, but I've been watching and I've been thinking, and I got tons to say. So thank you.
Thank you, Pablo. So I just wanted to say thank you for the report. And colleagues, the reason I requested this is that we've gotten a lot of feedback that there's a deeper well to who can be diverted out, and I just didn't know what the charges were for people who are actually in custody. So that's why I just wanted all of us to know who are we talking about, like what are the kinds of issues that people have. And so thank you for that. That's really helpful. And I think the point you raised about the court backlog and really diving deeper into the diversion pool makes a ton of sense. The only other thing I wanted to ask, and I'll do this a little bit offline, is that when we look at some of the crimes again, where we have violence against a person, I was curious about what percentage of those are considered domestic violence, recognizing that domestic violence is anybody within a household that has a
Sure.
relation, right?
So what we can do, and I'm happy to do this in a future report, is we can drill down on those numbers a little bit more and actually separate them out by penal code, which we can identify those penal code sections that relate to domestic violence specifically, and do, if it would be helpful for the committee to talk about that more deeply. But felony violence against a person can include domestic violence and often does, as does the misdemeanor violence against a person. But what we would need to do is break it down actually by the penal code violations, which we certainly can do. We would just have to do that in a future report.
And most of the reason I was thinking about that is that if we're going to be thinking a little bit more about prevention, then the question I would have really is, once we intersect somebody in any kind of our systems, and I'm thinking in particular as we are taking a deeper dive into the work we're doing, even with foster youth, that we are really trying to step back a little and really better understand that. So anyway, so I want to just say thank you. This was very helpful. All right, Nick and, oh, all right. May I, Wes, I'm going to go to the folks who haven't talked yet, and then I'm going to come back over here. And I'm going to talk, I am so, you guys, my glasses are gone. I have no idea where they are. So I'm going to go from the end back.
The slide that had the average length of stay, and that includes everybody at any given time, and what can be very misleading is your cases of homicide and how that
Yes.
really impacts the data and
It does. It
skews
skews the data.
Yeah.
And long-term sexual assault cases as well. I mean, some of our cases that are child sexual abuse or felony sexual violence can also take, not uncommonly, 2 to 5 years to prosecute in
And
some
so
cases.
you have a small number really impacting the overall view of what an average length of stay is, when that's really not the case. It's really bifurcated in those more serious, and then just the homicide and murder cases, which really skew the average length of stay. So it's hard to compare that to anything, because even on the juvenile side, when we do that, and we separate it, because the average length of stay is around 30 days, but when you include those other cases, it gets really skewed.
It does skew the data, and it is going to be the more significant crimes. And then if I can, to Public Defender O'Neill's point, I think what she brings up is really important about felony mental health diversion. One of the projects that has been talked about publicly in other settings is further collaboration between the camp unit and the PAR teams, between the district attorney's office and the public defender's office and the courts, to think about ways that we can more robustly staff an early mental health arraignment court calendar to be able to redirect people into treatment more quickly, and to identify those cases early on, which would help alleviate some of the cases on the court calendar and get people into treatment more quickly. So I think that's a really important point that Public Defender O'Neill brought up, and one that, again, I think points to the various outside of the box pilot programs, collaborative efforts of our departments that are yielding results.
Just a question, if you can educate me a little bit. So over half of them are less, five days or less. What happens within that 5 days that makes them releasable, but made them have to be booked?
Yeah, that's really going to be on a case-by-case basis, but I can give you a couple of anecdotes. So for instance, it can depend on when you're arrested. So if you're arrested on a Friday or Saturday, you may not get an arraignment date until Tuesday or Wednesday. If you're arrested on a holiday, that can also delay that time. And sometimes, every person who's coming into the jail is reviewed by the pretrial services unit to be released if they can be. Generally speaking, if they're staying in custody, it's because somebody requested a magistrate review, which usually means, not always, but often means, there's a reason in that particular, either the offense or the history, that they feel like a judge should have eyes on that case to make a determination. There is obviously a judge that's on call to make decisions within the jail, and certainly pretrial services is in the booking unit as well. But generally speaking, it's because either there's a delay in the arraignment because of the date of the arrest, and a combination of a circumstance in that individual case that's requiring a magistrate review. Yeah.
Anybody else on this side? Yeah.
Do those bookings, are they all on-view arrests, or do they include warrant arrests as well?
I would have to ask our data analyst, but I believe it is all bookings, is my understanding, but I can clarify that and maybe get back to you offline on that. But
Sure.
my understanding is when we request the data, and it's, as all of you who use CJIC know, it is an imperfect system, to say the least. So we are doing the best we can with a system that was designed 50 years ago. So we query it for all the booking data, but I'll confirm that.
The reason I ask is with the misdemeanor arrests, when you know, even if someone's released really quickly, if it was a warrant arrest and the bail amount was sufficiently high, I mean, that's an
Right.
order from a judge directing us to arrest and book somebody. So it's really not, we don't really have an option of not booking. So that's why I'm just
Right.
curious how the data.
Yeah, and there are some cases, I think to Nick's point, and as many of you know, the data for criminal justice data is very nuanced, and every individual case, it's different, right? And you can have somebody in on a misdemeanor, but then they may have felonies in their past that make the misdemeanor more serious. And, domestic violence certainly is, I think, one that's of concern to everybody, even on misdemeanor cases, because it can become violent and deadly very quickly. So every case is somewhat unique, but we do the best we can with the aggregate data.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond related to the warrant question and highlight and shout out that our office, in conjunction with the court and the CEO and the DA's office, have worked on a new protocol to get warrants recalled so that people don't get arrested on those warrants, both on arrest warrants and bench warrants, and that should keep that portion of the population of people who are in for a day down. Also want to, just as we enter a really difficult budget season, call out the amazing work that our early representation team has engaged in, including changing processes like this, working on an early mental health treatment team, which will ultimately reduce jail bookings and jail numbers safely and with methodology. But as we head into that difficult budget season, it's precisely those teams in the public defender's office that would be targeted out of the gate to be reduced. So I urge those of you in charge of the budget, looking at both of you supervisors, to keep that in mind as we start the discussion. Thank you.
I moved out of the way there.
So I'd like to make a statement. In terms of booking, I've been made aware that there are those who come in who are mentally ill but are not, and they go through the cracks. One person that I know, he was not deemed psychotic until he was there for 2 years. And he had many outbursts in the jail while he was there. And I think it would be better if they evaluated, particularly felony assault crimes of violence, if there's any kind of psychotic thing going on with them, like command hallucinations or even bipolar or disorders like that, but they don't see them until 2 or 3 weeks after. So I wonder if you could move that up, if that's true. I don't know if this is what I've been made aware of.
I think we had a discussion about that at the last meeting, and I apologize that we did not follow up with you. We did follow up with staff on that, and we'll follow up with you offline. All right, I'm going to move us on. No action on this item. We're going to go to item 5, and this is the autism spectrum disorder, traumatic brain injury, and fetal alcohol syndrome spectrum disorder. And I want to welcome Michelle. Oh, Pablo, I'm sorry. Sure, go ahead. But you need to speak into the mic. Thank you.
I apologize. I just had a couple of things for you. So my question is, as we're doing collecting the data in the aggregate.
Yes, sir.
Just like we're taking a picture, I learned that when you take a picture, it's best to edit while you're taking the picture. So like if I'm taking a picture and the background has a writing on the wall, or it's cluttered some back there, that I should move the subject over so that I get a clearer picture, right? So I'm just challenging when we're doing the data collection itself that we think that same way. Just because, like when we're looking at the homeless population, my girlfriend, she works at a homeless encampment, right? And at one of the tiny home locations, right? And every day she comes home with these stories of stuff that happens to her. So we discuss the general stuff, but it's literally crazy, the stuff that is allowed in some of those places. And it's not that it's allowed; it's just commonplace, and so much so commonplace that we just, as a society and community, we don't even, there's nothing that we could do about it. I beg to differ. I think that if we stop and we start to consider, and we're well on our way, but all the way through, like I always say that if you're pulling your car out into the road and you're halfway there, you're just getting everybody in danger. You might as well just keep on going, So that part is where the folks that are homeless, when you're doing if they commit a crime, there's a direct correlation, I believe, between the time in which they've been homeless to the amount of mental health issues they have, because it compounds and impacts itself over. So when cross that, like these crimes that they're committing, against the amount of like the level at which they're committing crimes, and I think we're going to have some other data to look at. So,
Thank you for your comments, sir.
I just want to follow up on an important comment that I think Pablo made about sort of the lens of the data of how we're looking at that, and I think it was also maybe Chief Burchard that commented. And I wonder if in future reports the data could be bifurcated so that we can really see kind of people that what the average length of stay is for folks who are charged with violent felonies or homicides or sex crimes versus those with lower level charges, and be able to look at those average lengths of stay in a way that I think might be a little bit more clear.
No, absolutely. I think we can pull that data out to give you a more realistic picture too, as Chief Burchard's point, not skew the
That it really
numbers with some of
skews
the,
it.
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, and thanks, Pablo, for triggering that thought.
Thank you. So,
Just fancy, split in half.
all right. Michelle, take two. There you go. Not really. I mean, we,
How about now?
perfect.
there we go.
Thank you.
Great. Good afternoon, Supervisor Chavez, Supervisor Ellenberg, members of the Reentry Network. Michelle De La Calle, the Director of the Office of System Integration and Transformation. I'm here with our Medical Director, Dr. Wade No. We're here to present an update on the Integrated Care Team Collaborative project between Custody Health, Behavioral Health, and the Santa Clara Valley Healthcare. And we're working with the population of executive function disorder, including TBI, fetal alcohol spectrum, and autism spectrum disorder. And hopefully I'm going to get the slide to go. There we go. So just some background here. The population of focus for this work are those with diagnosed or concern for undiagnosed executive function disorder, with the addition of high utilization, repeated custody encounters, navigation challenges across courts, health, behavioral, and social systems, and substance use and housing challenges have also been a common thread. We've moved through the incubation, preparing and launching. We're now at the tail end of testing and optimizing, and then we hope to scale and close out. The workflow stayed pretty consistent over time, and we're continuing to test and optimize with a warm handoff process at the end here, this kind of last piece of the work. And considering how to monitor and monitor for success in that handoff, and also monitor for risk moving in that handoff. As we've seen with similar populations in the past, there are some long-term needs that this population might need and that we're seeing that would not be met in standard care models. So the outcomes are here. We do have a small sample size, so this is not a huge program, so we don't have a large number of people to look at. But we have gone through 82 separate individuals' charts in a deep dive assessing whether or not they're the right fit. We have successfully had 26 enrolled. And when we look at the first 13 enrollees where we have some time to work with, 8 have been securely housed from an unhoused or an unstable housed situation. 7 have not had recidivism since we've intervened, and 10 with substance use disorder. Of those 10, that have substance use disorder, 4 have reduced use after intervention, and 4 are in early remission. Over here on the right side of the screen, you'll see one patient case review, and this is our point of intervention here. Just in general, the red over here is emergency room or emergency department utilization, and the green is diagnostics, the dark green is primary care. So once we intervene, we see this emergency department use dropping and increased use of primary and preventative care. Again, this is one instance, but we're seeing this as being the trend and trying to look a little bit more at the broader scope of folks. And this is one individual that we've been working with for over 12 months, so we have a little bit of time to see this. The last month here is June, and we're seeing this continue as we move forward. Our 2023 year end, we did not quite do everything we set out to do. We've been having a soft launch with the youth and transitional age youth services, and we have just a couple folks that we're getting referred in from those from the juvenile side. And then we have not finalized a feasibility and pro forma, so those are things that we're going to carry into 2024. As well as the system gaps, we're still collecting system gaps and working on how to close those gaps as we move forward. So here are our 2024. You'll see again those 3 along the top that we're going to keep those in mind. We're also going to continue to operationalize this work and figure out the right places and the right workflows to keep this work moving forward. Re-engaging stakeholder groups and ensuring that we have transition into active work groups and other functional teams to help sustain this work and spread it. And then we hope to close the incubation and have a successful program that lives and breathes moving forward. Before we go to questions, we noted in our written report that we did apply for a QLA award, and we're happy to announce that we did receive an award for innovation based on this program just last Friday at the
Yay, congratulations.
So we are really, really proud of that. There's a small video that we'll share the link to. I think it might have been on some announcement this morning. But we're really, really proud of this program, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Michelle and Dr. No. We really appreciate it. I know this was, I always want to remember everybody who helped us, but, these were community leaders who had folks who were in our jails who they knew they were adopted children that they thought may have these problems, and we weren't able to respond to them. And just to say, I believe in mother's love changes the world. Fathers, you're good too, but we really rock. And the second thing is Miguel Marquez really helped us get this, launched, and these things take time, but the results so far look really incredible. I'm going to go to the public first, and then I'm going to lean right into President Ellenberg there. Do we have any public speakers on this item?
No public speakers in chambers, and currently no hands raised in Zoom.
Thank you. I'm going to close the public comment portion, and I'm going to go to President Ellenberg.
Thank you. I want to thank the staff as well, and also congratulate you on this award. And for those of you who didn't hear or the detail of what this really acknowledges, it's the work that they've done in developing best practices and closing gaps for justice-involved individuals who have this variety of executive function disorders. So it's really important work, and congratulations and much gratitude. I want to just thank you also for calling out on the slide and in your report the goals that you haven't yet met. And I feel like that's a really notable and important shift for our county to really know and understand that it's both wonderful to celebrate and promote the work that's been done, but to also be super clear about what hasn't been achieved yet and give us, policymakers, board members, et cetera, the opportunities to say, what are the barriers? How can we help? What do you need to achieve these goals rather than shying away from them? So just thank you so much.
Thank you.
For that transparency as well. I'm really impressed by how much progress the county has made in just a few short years, looking forward, of course, to improvements and iterations to continue to address system gaps and health disparities for justice-involved patients. I have a question about the reporting structure. It operates, can you just help me, Michelle? You're the director
Yes.
of it. How many people are on your team?
On this team, there are 4 people doing this work with this population, plus the support of Dr. No as the medical director, a program manager who's currently on maternity leave,
Okay.
a QI manager. Our data team helps support in pulling a lot of information together. We partner across the system, so we work very closely with behavioral health departments, as well as partner with custody health and the psychologists there, and we are partnering with Dr. Agarwal in the juvenile setting as well.
Is this a model that you envision being scaled? And I heard the comment earlier, I think from Pablo as well, about serving fewer people, deeper services. It's such a tough thing because we want to serve everybody and we want to do it all well. And it sounds like what you're doing here is really that deep engagement with a small number. But what do you think about in terms of scaling this work?
I think that's a really tough question and one of the biggest challenges that we're going to face moving into 2024.
Is it tough financially, or is it tough for other philosophical or population or other reasons?
I think both.
Okay.
I think one of the biggest challenges, and what I kind of alluded to in that warm handoff, extended warm handoff, is really finding a standard care model, a model that works for most everybody, that also works for a smaller population that's super at risk. And so that handoff process is challenging because if I've devoted 12 months, 18 months to help an individual progress to a certain level, having that trust that that's going to be maintained is really hard because you develop relationships and you know exactly what they need. And similar to what Casey was talking about, they're individuals, and each of those individuals needs something different. And so helping somebody else understand that level of detail that's going to help them be successful and maintain optimum health and community, which is the goal, it's hard. So we're learning a little bit about that and hopefully developing some tools on how to offload and support them with less intensity, relying on other systems of care so that we can bring more patients in and develop better programs. There is a cost factor as well, meaning intensive work when you're meeting with an individual 3-4 times a week, doing very intensive long days with them, maybe going to the DMV and then to the SDI, driving them to their court and back, helping them make sure they don't miss their appointment for their housing opportunity. It's very intensive. So
And is this all general fund work? This doesn't sound like Medi-Cal covered things.
We are working on getting ECM
Good,
billed for this.
Good.
With the
Or whole person, GPP, one of those.
Yeah, and so maximizing that revenue, but it's at this point not breaking even.
And of course now, if it's funded in the way CalAIM is, and you can't bill for the transportation and the waiting online at the DMV and all of those ancillary pieces, that's really interesting and challenging, and something that we might want to really lift up as an example of what may not be working with the new payment reform. I did want to. It wasn't a question, just kind of one more comment when you were describing how what could work for a small group that could work for everybody. The analogy I think of is that if all educators were trained to be special ed teachers, they could teach everybody, because whatever they learned for the special ed classes would absolutely benefit the larger population. So some of this may be a workforce training and development issue, so that everyone can meet those highest needs and then apply them as needed more broadly. But this is really fascinating work. Thank you both so much. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to look and see if there are any questions or comments on this side. Judge Manley? And then Pablo. You're on now.
Try to fix it. Thank you very much for the presentation, and I strongly support the work you're doing. I just wanted to focus in on traumatic brain injury and intellectual challenges that individuals in custody have. Two things, if you could do everything you can to have them create within the jail a system to assess these individuals and meet with them. I repeatedly request an assessment, an examination, when it's pointed out to me by behavioral health, for example. This individual is really not mentally ill. This is an intellectual disability or it is a traumatic brain injury, and I've never received a report to this day. The second thing is, in your work, I hope that you can, and I know you're working individually with the frustration at our end is this. If the person has an intellectual challenge and does not, and often will not qualify for San Andreas Regional Center, or has TBI, we need a way to refer them to treatment, because right now there's none at all. And so what happens then, just practically, is I see them again and again being rearrested. And we have to find a way to stop that, because when we talk about people who stay in jail too long, this group of individuals stays far too long, in my view. Thank you.
And I'm going to just intercede for 1 minute because we don't have anybody from the CEO's office. Oh, Casey, I'm so sorry. I'm so blind. I'm not kidding you. I feel, and I'm so sorry if I'm squinting at all of you and I look angry. I'm totally blind. That's all it is. But what I was going to suggest is that just to say this, that initially when we, Judge Manley, you may recall that when we initially started down this path, this was because we had a subset of people in custody that were getting rearrested and rearrested and rearrested, and there is no system for adults who have traumatic brain injury. There just isn't. And so this is actually the beginning of creating that system so that we have appropriate placement for them. And the other problem, and this is a state law issue, is that if you are injured, if you get a traumatic brain injury as an adult, you can't go to SARC, and there literally is no services for you. So one, as we think about advocacy, one recommendation I would make is that there may be value to us engaging with our legislative team, because what we're learning from this, it just explains not just the changes we need in medical insurance, but it also explains literally that there's a missing network. And frankly, the network has become the jails, and the network has become your officers collecting people on the street who are behaving inappropriately because their brains are damaged. So what I would just say is I think that's kind of a bigger conversation. So what I'd ask the county exec's office, if you wouldn't mind, think about how to bring that discussion back, because we asked of staff, my staff was asking, what are all the missing components to the services? And this is just one of many pages that we can see that we're missing. So let's, if we could, colleagues, I just want to take that offline, because I think we need to think a little bit about how we want to dive into it. And also, the other thing I just want to say aloud is that this is a relatively new program. We haven't tested it for very long, and I think we need a little time under our belts. The number of people we're dealing with is relatively small. We should be looking at, as it relates to recidivism, where are we seeing the risks outside of housing? And to your point, the very labor-intensive services means, and I'll just say this again, I've raised this a number of times, that I don't think we have all the appropriate housing available to the people who have needs. So when we do find a place for them, they're coming out anyway because we don't have a place for them. And we could have a longer discussion about that. But anyway, I think just to just to say thank you for the direction. I'm going to go back to my colleagues, but I think we need to give a little thought of next steps and perhaps how it comes back here and then to Health and Hospital, which is really partly where it should be. Pablo?
So I just wanted to drive that home. Everything that I wrote down here, Judge Manley stole from me. No, I'm kidding. But he's on point, and I just don't understand how we have a great resource like Judge Manley, and we still don't listen to the things that he's telling us when he's the one that he's driving a lot of this. Well, if we don't listen, maybe we don't listen enough. Maybe he needs to let you guys go fishing when you guys do something great. But I say that to say this. I'm going to ask just really quickly, how many departments do we have here? So I know we have the CEO office. You're with the health systems. I also know that we have pretrial services here, probation. So in all of these departments, I'm just going to ask you if you could raise your hand if you have a system or a mechanism that allows you to identify a person that has executive function issues.
No.
And that's the part where, because if we cannot, Judge Manley, if we can't identify them, we can't refer them. But first we got to figure out how to identify them, but then how do we treat them? And I don't mean treatment by the way the medical term. I mean, how are we going to treat them as individuals? Because that's what we need to start focusing on. Because if you have those type of issues, and my brother has mental health issues, and in our family we don't treat people any different, And by that I mean we give them the same courtesy, respect, duties as everyone else, but we do make concessions for them. I wouldn't give my brother coming home from the grocery store, I wouldn't give him too many bags of groceries, but I still will allow him to carry some, or because he wants to help. So I'm just something I want us to consider, because this is a separate population, and if we're treating them the same as other people, then we end up back here on the Blue Ribbon Commission, and that's just something I don't want to see. So.
And that was the exact point of the moms. I'm going to take Wes, and then I'll come to you, Mary.
I just wonder if, I used to work for the VA for 30 years, and there's many veterans with TBI, and I wonder if you have consulted with them and what they do. I'm sure they do have programs for that, and I think that would be a tremendous resource for you to look into.
It's a great idea.
I just have one more thing to ask. In your report, and in the CEO's office report, your report didn't show how many people that have executive function. So that's part of the thing that I'm wondering is you guys are both presenting here, and you guys have both separate data, but there should be a link that's happening there where we should understand that those two things correlate so closely that the things that you have in your report, they should be there. When we're looking for them, so that I know that we're trying to speed up to the space, but it starts by just communicating and knowing that, and just being unafraid to reach over and say, hey, this is what we have here, because you guys collect the data, you guys have numbers for yourself, but don't be afraid to share it, even if nobody wants it. Make sure you just try to share it.
Yes.
I would like to add on the educational piece, and Dr. Duan is not here, that when we see the students at the jail, they often tell us that they have disabilities, that they cannot, they don't always know how to identify them. So we need to very carefully make the distinction of what are learning disabilities and also what are cognitive disabilities. If the student happens to have had an IEP when they were younger, we reach out to the County Office of Education, and in the event that they have it, they do provide the services. If they don't have it, as teachers, we always use the universal teaching strategies that Supervisor Ellenberg was referring to. And we do give the students more time, for example, when they're taking their high school equivalency tests. So I think that, that it's also important for us to always see the educational component attached to the learning disabilities and the cognitive disabilities that can be very different. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Rose.
I'm glad this is being addressed. We have a young man that's been coming to our organization for a long time now, and he has a traumatic brain injury, and he always says, he's a hard worker, but he says, I'm going back to jail. Why are you going back? Because I'm going back to jail. That's just his mindset. he's there only until he goes back to jail. So there needs to be something that, something to help him. There's really nothing, and he just, gets out for a while and it's going back. And why are you going back? Because I'll get in a fight again and I'll go back to jail.
Thank you, Mary.
Back in the 90s, I was a clinical director at a program called Treatment Options. I don't know if anybody, well, Bruce maybe remembers it. But this was a 30-day program where people were coming directly from criminal justice to our residential program for 30 days for assessment, for deeper assessment. And one of the things I did at the time was I did a learning disabilities study for a year. And so I assessed every single person we had. And so I had about 226 people came through directly from jail, either prison or Elmwood. And of those, a third of them had been diagnosed with learning disabilities, special needs as a kid. Another third met all of the criteria, but had never been formally diagnosed other than that they were just stupid in their head. That was their self-diagnosis. And then another third did not. So basically, 2/3 of people coming from the criminal justice system, and other research has shown this, about 65%. You're looking at learning disabilities, ADHD. This is really very common. And at the time, we did a training program for the different treatment programs called START, and we were working with treatment programs around learning disabilities. So in terms of assessment, it's quite possible to at least screen. It is not that particularly hard. You don't even have to have a lot of degrees to do it. And there are things you can do in terms of working with people that can actually be helpful in terms of just even something simple, like when you write on the board, you write, capital letters instead of smaller letters. I mean, they're just things you can do. So yes, this is a large population. I mean, everything from, and even with fetal alcohol syndrome, mostly we would see fetal alcohol effect, which is you don't have the face, but you have you might have ADHD, or you might have the cognitive challenges with it. So yeah, this is, it's, in terms of specialization, it's true. It is hard to find in most treatment centers. There is not a lot of accommodation, partly because you have a very short time window, which is the enemy of what we're talking about. People need more time. So if I have 30 days to do treatment, right, and I'm the kind of person that if you give me 1 or 2 items, 3 items in a row, please do this, this, and this, I might remember one of them, either because of, again, I also assessed for traumatic brain injury, history of head injury. Again, huge number of people. Everything from just bar fights to falling out of trucks. And a lot of them didn't believe they had a TBI because they'd never been to the hospital, right? So I would just say, well, you ever lose consciousness? Oh, just for a minute, So it's, this population, is pretty robust. And I'm just thrilled that we're dealing with it. But I also think, again, we're looking at a range. And it is quite possible to, we've got the high intensity range, absolutely. And then we've got other people that maybe if they had a little bit better accommodation would be more successful, and we wouldn't have, because the difficulty is managing any kind of snafu or problem. Like as soon as something comes up that's not on the plan, it's like, oh no. Right? So basic problem solving tends to be the challenge here. And so there is possibility of training that I think could be of assistance. Wouldn't solve everything, but could maybe bridge some of that gap. That's it.
I was going to say, Mary, that's the educator in you. P.D. O'Neill, and then I'll go to Aaron.
Thank you. Just briefly, I want to put a point on what everyone has said, and thank you for the report. I just wanted to mention that for us, as criminal defense attorneys, this comes up quite a bit, and often you can't see fetal alcohol syndrome if they don't have manifest features of it, but it really comes out in their behavior, and so we're often trying to unpack their lives so that we can tell their story and explain that their behavior and their decision making is not like everybody else's, but it's really tricky. You made the point that they may not have gone to the hospital, so you have a family with 8 kids and one of them dove into a swimming pool with no water in it, but they like, oh, he woke up, so, and from then on he was different, but you don't really know that to kind of weave it into the case and the storytelling of the client's life unless you talk to 7 siblings and the mom and the dad, and maybe they were in Mexico when it happened. So it's really difficult to kind of recreate it. But there are checklist items you can go through, and we do it as defense attorneys on complicated cases where the cases are taking a while, and we start to get a hint that, oh, there's an IEP, and the behavior was fine until that kid dove into the pool. But it's complicated, it takes a long time, and it's really, really important. So thank you for highlighting it. And Pablo, to your point, do we have any systems? It's not a pretty system, but we certainly are aware to look for it and know which questions to ask. Thanks.
Erin?
So it's interesting, just a quick Google search. I mean, in the research that's been done in prisons, upward of 60% of the people in prison have traumatic brain injuries, and that isn't counting the fetal alcohol and the learning disabilities. I think probably, I'm hearkening back to when the advocate moms came and this whole thing started, and the interventions that they were asking for, to me, can just become a baseline. That we could almost have a presumption that there is some sort of an executive function impairment so that we're setting a base where more and more people can be successful. And we're not talking the deep end interventions, but just in terms of, you can't give multiple instructions concurrently. And I think that there are probably things that we can do system-wide that can help a lot more of these people be successful, because I don't think it's a small population that we're talking about here.
Yes, thank you. All right, so Casey, I'm going to say, Michelle and Dr. No, thank you very much for the report, and I really am excited to see what comes of the next phases. I do think we want to start to have a bigger discussion about the interventions and the gaps, so we're thinking about what the legislative action is, what, Michelle, what you and Dr. No are learning that we can get, frankly, with a little more in a little more detail, and then I think we can talk a little bit about how to bring that back and when the appropriate time to do that is, but I'll leave that to staff to come up with that, okay? Thank you all. We're going to move to item 6, and this is a mobile phone application use.
That's me again.
Okay, Casey.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Chavez, Vice Chair Ellenberg. So I will be presenting on the use of mobile applications by justice system clients, and I would like to acknowledge and thank the departments who contributed to this report: the Office of the Public Defender, Office of Pretrial Services, and the Victim Services Unit in the Office of the District Attorney, who are represented here and are also available for questions. And Chairperson, in the interest of time, as I believe that we may have to conclude the meeting at 4:30, I wanted to defer to you to see whether or not you'd like to have a formal presentation, or if you would prefer to just go to comments and questions.
On this one, let me just see if anybody else read the report and had comments and questions on this one. I think the only thing, did you, Erin? Oh, yeah. So so the thing I wanted to just say, first of all, I really appreciated the report. And one of the things that I thought was most interesting about it, let me see if I can find it find your glasses. Okay. Is the number of clients that you've actually been able to engage in using the app. Because when we talked last time, we were having a hard time with the adoption of it. And also, what I'm curious about is, now that you've seen some of this work, could you tell me if you drew a conclusion as to what this mobile app intervention did that was most compelling for our community?
So I worked on this project when I was Director of Victim Services previously. For this report, I'm really kind of collating information from our departments, so I would rely on their expertise. But in writing this report and talking to the departments, I think what was most exciting, and this was true from the Office of the Public Defender, but also from the Office of Pretrial Services, is the reduction in failures to appear, that these push notifications and the mobile apps allowed people to be reminded to attend court, to come to court, which then resulted in better participation and less warrants, less rearrests, less in custody time. So I know that we have Assistant Public Defender Sarah McCarthy here as well, who could certainly answer questions along with Public Defender O'Neill. But that seemed to me to be the most exciting development, and that was also backed up by the data from pretrial services, which showed the same, that the push notifications on check-ins, drug testings, and court dates enhanced our community members' ability to participate in those events meaningfully and therefore not have a failure to appear. So I think for that particular, those two populations, I think that's what really stood out to me in this report.
Did anybody who worked on this want to make a comment on it? Because I think it's the right direction, and I'm really excited about it. And Pablo, were you raising your hand? That's all right. No, that's okay.
Use your mic.
Yeah, thank you.
I just have, moving forward, I would love to work on that project. I'll download the app on my phone just so that we could see, just so I could assess it as well. But there's so much stuff that you could do with that. In my job, I pitched this idea to Microsoft, and it was I talked to AT&T and then I talked to Microsoft as well. And for the homeless population, I said, why don't we create a net around the Guadalupe space and give everybody free phones with the access to the internet. But on the phone, it's almost like a game almost. So you're a green dot, and all the things that you have to accomplish, they're orange. And they navigate you to green areas, and those green areas are places like for employment or for other things. But the Wi-Fi area in that region, there's so many things that we could work in. It's so easy, all the way down to for probation. Instead of having to go see your probation officer every 4 or 5 days, or to have it interrupt your ability to work, which is another mandate, you could do a drug test over your phone just by checking your eye movement. There's tons of stuff that's out there that can make it easier for an individual to reintegrate. And so please, I have plenty of free time because I'm not working right now. I'd love to work on something like that with you guys. So.
Thank you for your comments. I think it's something that the board has also shown interest in its discussion point in many of our committees is how can we leverage the expertise and talent in Silicon Valley and lived experience and some of our subject matter experts here to enhance what seem to be very intuitive improvements in the use of our mobile devices. Absolutely.
Thank you. And I'm going to wrap this up just to say well done. And I am going to bring this back for a different kind of discussion, but I want to stalk some of you before I surprise you. All right, Javier and team, you are bringing up the last item, and it's actually a very meaty item. And this is about the Mission Street Recovery Station update. And what I want to do is when the staff, I do want to ask you to do the report, but when they're completed, I want to make sure folks ask every question and give their insights. You have a lot of really very good information to present. Thank you, and welcome.
Well, good afternoon. Javier Aguirre with the Office of Diversion and Reentry Services. Along with me is Gabby Oliveras from Behavioral Health System and Chad Martins with our Office of Diversion and Reentry Services. So on behalf of the many stakeholders that have invested thousands of hours to make sure that the Mission Street Recovery Station is up and running and operational, we're here to provide an update from the 5-year report that we did last year during this time. So as many of you know, the Mission Street Recovery Station is located here in San Jose at the Reentry Resource Center, and it was started back in October of 2017 with the idea of working closely with all of our law enforcement agencies. And over the years, we've expanded to include the behavioral health providers, EPS, emergency departments, and now custody releases. Folks that are being released from Allenwood or Main Jail can receive a referral form from either custody health or the Office of the Sheriff. So on this slide, it just shows that since we started back in October of 2017, we've served about 3,500 unique clients. Back in 2017, we had reported to the board that we had hoped to serve 3,500 unique clients in 1 year if we were at full capacity every single day. But as we've slowly increased the capacity, but also added some different features to the Mission Street Recovery Station, we're not at full capacity yet, and we hope to do that. This slide just basically provides a snapshot of the race and ethnicity and also the age. So in the report, it gives you a fuller description of who is using the Missions to Recovery Station. And most of our clients are between 36 and 50-year-olds and then are male. 29% of our clients that use the Missions to Recovery Station are Hispanic and Latino. And if we look at the comparison of what it is at our jail population, so our jail population right now, it's about, I looked at, it's about 60% in our jail population are Hispanic, Latino. Black, African American, 14%, white, 18%, and Asian, 8%. So not very close to the demographics when we look at Missions to Recovery Station in the jail. And the reason why I bring this is in terms of utilization and the parity and also closing the racial disproportionality in our jail population to ensure that Missions to Recovery Station, other ATI efforts are used to reduce the jail population. And then this is a slide that depicts the referrals from the various sources. So as I mentioned, the majority, we started with law enforcement agencies and we brought in the behavioral health agencies. And so the majority of all the referrals for this in 2023 were from behavioral health. So behavioral health consisted of all the providers that use it and also EPS. And then 26% of the admitted clients at Missions to Recovery Station are from our law enforcement agencies. So we work very closely with the health and hospital system, behavioral health services, and Horizon to look at the utilization and the discharge outcomes. So this slide basically shows how many individuals successfully completed their stay in the Missions to Recovery Station, and that during the fiscal year, 79% of admissions were completed. This also indicates, the slide also shows the percentage of folks that stay, the average length of stay. So the average length of stay is about 6 hours or longer, about 73% of that for fiscal year 23-24. And then in terms of utilization, so when we first started, we started with 5 recliners, and then when we moved, when we expanded it, it went to 15 recliners, but due to COVID, it was reduced to 12 recliners. And it stayed at 12 recliners up to the move to the new location. And the reason why is because of the other services that we brought in terms of the mental health triage. Horizon staff felt that they needed that space in between the recliners for better patient delivery. And so we stayed at 12 recliners. So using that 12 recliner as a utilization, we only were able to do 21% for the last fiscal year. This current fiscal year, part of the contract is we're trying to get to 70% utilization at 20 recliners. And so how are we doing that is by collaborating with San Jose Police Department to look at other options like the misdemeanor DUI pilot program, and other ways of encouraging our law enforcement agencies to use the Missions to Recovery Station. We're looking at the month of November as probably the highest utilization of the whole 5-6 years of the Missions to Recovery Station. And I think that's just a testament to the work that we're doing with San Jose Police Department and others. So as I mentioned, the DUI pilot program, so that started in October 16 of 2023. Since then, up to November 27, so literally like about 6 weeks or so, there was 36 individuals that were brought in by police officers to use this pilot program. And we've briefed this, presented to this body and to other board meetings in terms of why we are doing this DUI pilot program. And that's something that we work closely with San Jose Police Department to look at the protocols and what is something that can be brought into the Missions to Recovery Station. we looked at examples in San Mateo County and in Monterey County where they have that type of program. So we have a pilot program for 6 months. We meet with the San Jose PD leadership to look at the challenges and successes of these clients in terms of the average length of stay that they're there, 3 to 4 hours, ensuring that the Missions to Recovery Station staff provide the information to the individual so they know what to do once they leave, to ensure that they still report to either the San Jose Police Headquarters or main jail to follow the booking, and then to make sure that they do appear in court for adjudication. So that's something that Missions to Recovery Station is doing. And most importantly, too, is that they're also connecting them and making referrals to services that they may request and need. One of the big successes for this year is making sure that we were able to move the Missions to Recovery Station from the temporary location in auditorium, where they were using temporary showers and restrooms outside in a trailer, to this new location right at the Reentry Resource Center. So we had an open house a few months ago, and these are just some pictures. If you haven't come by and visited, you're always welcome to. Just let us know, and we'll make sure you can visit the Missions to Recovery Station. And one of the attributes to this new location is, of course, our private ADA bathrooms and showers. There's washer and dryer there, and then also the capacity. So we could meet the 20 recliners, but if we want to increase it in the future for expansion, we could have it up to 30 recliners. And then another important facet in terms of this new location, we have our own suite at the front where the officers will meet with the Missions to Recovery Station. The individual do all the triage in a private room before they are moved to the larger space. In the next few slides, we just identified some core challenges and strategic efforts. So we mentioned how do we increase the engagement with law enforcement agencies. So this GUI pilot, and we're hoping that at the 6-month time frame, we show that it's a successful program that we could then offer it to the rest of all the law enforcement agencies in the county. Another challenge the partners have identified is how well is Horizons, the contractor, connected with the whole behavioral health system, and what can we do to ensure some more smoother referrals to the behavioral health continuum of care system. And so, of course, it's engaging the staff that's already at the Reentry Resource Center, so the behavioral health team, and then also the Valley Homeless Healthcare Program, VHHP team at the center. And so it's the constant communication between all three entities, Horizon, VHHP, and Behavioral Health System, to provide the Missions to Recovery Station clients with the medical and behavioral health care they need. And then also ensure that they also have access to the behavioral health system data system avatar. And then this slide just also, one thing that Horizons did last year was to survey the clients there at the Missions to Recovery Station. So they surveyed about 600 individuals there while they're at the Missions to Recovery Station. And good news is that the majority of individuals have indicated that they agree that they were treated with dignity and respect while they were at the Missions to Recovery Station. They were given the right amount of help. Keep in mind that they were still at the old site, and now with the new site, I think we'll be showing more promising satisfaction rates from the clients there in terms of having a better services and location. And so with that presentation, we're here to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to see if there's any public speakers on this item.
No, but if I may, through the chair, for the record, there were no public speakers for item 6 either. I think we might have skipped over that. But at this time, there are no hands raised in Zoom or any cards in chambers.
But I'm going to close the public comment period. And I'm going to actually ask if any of our law enforcement could weigh in on their experience and
Well, yeah, I'll start with San Jose if you want to make a comment at your pilot, but I was just going to commend the innovation of doing this pilot. And I do think, and maybe you're already set to come to the county chiefs meeting when you're ready to announce this broader pilot or program, so all the agencies are familiar with it. Will that also include the California Highway Patrol as a resource?
Yes, and also it would include, so the BART system with the, excuse me, with San Jose Police Department, so yes, CHP.
And then the 36 that have gone already, and because you just started this, right? And so it's a pretty good number. Have all 36, if it's at that point yet, have all of them been responsive in coming back for the processing piece, or have we had any issues with that?
We don't have that information, but we could follow up on that.
Okay. Good job, man.
So I would like to thank Javier Aguirre and his staff. They worked really, really hard on this project. You know, it's funny, we say it's an innovation. This is actually something that I did at another police department over 30 years ago in San Mateo County. And so in a meeting where there was some frustration at our seeming underutilization of the center, I said, hey, we used to do this in San Mateo. How about we do this here? And it's through your hard work and the hard work of some of the staff in our department that we have launched this. And Bob, I agree with you. I think if we can get the Highway Patrol involved, I mean, they probably arrest more DUIs than anybody else. It's going to really increase the utilization.
thank you. Chief, other chief, a lot of chief. Go ahead, other chief.
I would also just ask if San Jose State chief is involved in this as well, as school tends to be a place where parties and things have happened, drinking and of such. I'm just curious if they're involved, at least in the conversation.
Yes, so the universities are all involved in accessing the Center for Public Intoxication, but we could definitely work with them on this whole pilot project as well.
It's actually a really good idea. Wes?
As one of the founders, along with Reverend Townsend and Judge Manley, I would like to remind you that this started as a partnership between faith-based organizations and mental health under Nancy Pena. What I see lacking, and I've asked this before, there's a strong link between spirituality and mental health. And I've asked that you contact the corrections and chaplaincy within the jail system and to collaborate with the people outside of the jail system. You'll get more referrals. I tell you that because they are culturally connected. And so this is what I haven't seen yet. I've asked this a couple times about connecting with the chaplains in the jail as well as with the faith-based community outside to help with that. I'm, of course, with law enforcement and all the other agencies, mental health, but mental health has fallen short in connecting with the spirituality community.
Thank you for that question and that comment. So with leadership of Pastor Tony Williams, we were able to meet with the chaplaincy. And let's keep in mind that the 4 faith-based centers have, excuse me, have a resource table at Elmwood, and they could also make referrals to the Mission Street Recovery Station.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Pablo, go ahead, please.
So I'm going to do a little bit of calling out. I appreciate the work that the San Jose Police Department is doing. Just because a few years ago we talked about the idea, and I was expecting it to just immediately, everybody was just going to get on board and that place was going to be packed. I would want to see the data around how when tasers were introduced as another option, how long it took them to start using tasers, because this is the same thing. It's a new tool that the officers have on their belt, right? So, and a quick story is that in the time since I've been out, my daughter got arrested for a DUI charge, right? And my first response was, "Hey, we have a sobering center," and the officer said they had no idea, thought I was lying. And that's the point where, rather than it was 3 in the morning, she was drinking, and or she was allegedly drinking, and that, and so it's sad that I had to say, as much work as I do, I had to look at my own child go into that space where I'm working so that never has to happen. But there's an option there, and so this one becomes a little bit more personal to me because I would rather have to check in with Javier at the reentry center than to call Matt Fisk at pretrial services. That's how serious this happens, and that's my daughter. And but there's kids out there that are happening on that too all the time. And the longer we wait to have those meetings, and we're 5 years in. How long has it been open? About 4 years? 6 years. So 6 years into this, and I always say the people that suffer the most are those that we overlook in the reiterations of the work that we do. So just something to consider. And Javier, you guys are doing a great job over there. And in that space alone, I've seen you guys do just the way in which you could access the services there. It's a model for how you can work together to make things happen. I just want to acknowledge that.
Yeah, all right. Thank you. Thank you for the really, really good report. The improvements are exciting to see. I would like to see, Javier, year-over-year data in charts that will really help us identify trends and be able to make better comparisons, like increases in meth referrals, alcohol, whatever it is, year over year. And to the chief's question about data on follow-up, I think that's really critical, and it's certainly critical to encouraging law enforcement to continue to use this if we have the evidence to say, yeah, people are showing up. I think that would be a really important piece. And can you say a little bit more about the work that is just getting underway to possibly use some of those beds as detox for narcotics? Is that something that also came from SJPD?
I think, I don't want to speak for Javier, but I think that's kind of the next step that we're looking at. Because frankly, right now, we don't make a lot of arrests for being under the influence of narcotics because it's not a bookable offense, and we end up having to leave the person in place. But if we can bring them, because again, this is a voluntary situation. The reason the DUI works great is because we can't leave a DUI person at the scene. We have to book them into a jail or ensure that they're in a safe location. So this alternative is terrific. With somebody that we're arresting for being under the influence of methamphetamine, we don't have the same legal obligation to transport them anywhere. So we're kind of in a position where it's we just would leave them in place. So if we can bring them there, and that's kind of the next step, I think that's where we're working to go. In other words, say instead of, because we do have the option of booking a misdemeanant that's under arrest, and so instead of booking them, we can take them to the sobering station and hopefully get them connected to services.
And are there, thank you, that's a really important distinction. And I don't know if it would be appropriate, but at least to think about whether, other than the threat of booking, is there another incentive that would encourage somebody to comply? And was that part of the San Mateo program also, or is that just for DUIs?
It was just for DUIs or drunken public, but oftentimes, frankly, if someone's getting arrested for drunken public, it's because their behavior is such that they probably wouldn't be good candidates for the sobering station anyway, or the recovery center. But with the DUIs, it's a different situation. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think you're finding, and the feedback I'm getting is that the people they're staying the appropriate amount of time. They're not causing you any trouble while they're there. And, obviously there's certain limitations to who can go and who cannot.
Got it, thank you. And Javier, is there anything else that's appropriate to add now about work toward detox space there?
Right, so part of the reports to FGOC on the behavioral health treatment services and the treatment facilities is FAF, or Facilities and Fleet Department, excuse me, is doing a feasibility study to look at withdrawal management at the Reentry Resource Center. Basically, our office suite will be turned into 10 or 12 bed withdrawal management. So that we're going to be starting that feasibility study.
There's so many different terms. Just help me understand. Is withdrawal management equivalent to social detox?
Yes, social detox. Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And I just had one other number clarifying question. The report says 41% of people were offered services or referred to behavioral health or community supports. I would think do we not offer to everybody, or is it 40% that accepted referrals? And if they accept a referral, does that mean that they've actually gone to participate in the services?
So that number is it's based on our understanding working with with Horizons. It's the of the individuals that were receptive in getting the referral, they received it, but we're still trying to get the number of folks that actually were enrolled, and that number was only 7%.
Yeah, that's
So, and keep in mind that, individual can say, yes, they're willing to do it, and they
Right.
leave, and then they decide.
right. And I'm not looking to expand compulsory, although it's not my call as the law is changing. But it certainly would be worth thinking and strategizing about what would entice or encourage or incent more people to come in, because that 7%, I wouldn't assume that 100% of the people need those services, but certainly we should be aiming a lot higher.
Right, and I think in our report, we also show that this past quarter, so that's 41% was for fiscal year 22, 23. But for this past quarter, it went to 81%.
I'm going to get you some water.
Oh, no, I have water here.
Oh, you have water there? So,
You couldn't see me either. So if I could follow up on
Thank you.
that point, I have one very discrete request, and that is that I think one of the challenges we have to think through is that what a warm handoff really is and isn't for this population. Like, I think, Gabby, you all have been doing amazing work, and the real question is, if what we're telling law enforcement, we're telling them two things. One, three things. You can bring a person here safely. We're going to provide support to them. We're going to try to support and help them, and you can do it quickly, which is number two, so you can go back out and do other work. And then number three is that we're going to have an opportunity to create an environment that is sticky enough that we have an opportunity to do that motivational interviewing and then actually getting someone connected. So one of the things that, one of the things that I want to make sure I understand, and I'd love it if you could do this in an off-agenda report, or if it's already in here and you just think, Cindy, go to page 42 and it's in here. I don't yet understand how that hook in this environment, what it is and how we get it created. And for some people, they're scared enough that they kind of wake up and think, yikes, I'm somewhere where I shouldn't be, and others, if it's going to take something more than that, I just would want to understand that, because I've been thinking a lot. I think Susan's point is right, that we know compulsory treatment, it doesn't work, but what I don't understand is whether or not we have an opportunity to create an environment where someone has enough time to interact with another human being that helps them get into that frame of mind that they will go and take that next step. That's the piece that I really, really want to understand, because I think what we want to be able to tell the community, law enforcement, and each other is that we're actually, the off-ramp is actually getting some subset of people to get the help that they need. We know it's not going to be everybody. Colleagues, we just lost our quorum, so our meeting is ending right now. And I can see Kavita about to jump onto the mic, and I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to see you all in the new year, and staff, well done. Thank you.